Hello, comic book junkies. It's the Frog Queen here, and today I'm coming at you with another comic book review. I'm finally going to actually talk about REAVER. Ta-da! REAVER just wrapped up with issue 6 from Image Comics, SKYBOUND Comics, and yeah. I thought now that the first story arc is officially over, I would talk about it. I kind of didn't want to while it was coming out. I don't know, sometimes like if I talk about the initial first issue, I want to wait for the story arc to wrap up before I really dive into what I think. Anyways, this is not really an impartial review since I technically work for Justin Jordan, the writer, but I've always been a fan of his work anyway, so I thought I would talk about REAVER, yeah. So, Rebecca Isaacs is the artist, not the cover artist. Cover artist is, of course, Becky Cloonan. Gorgeous, gorgeous covers. The interior art is by Rebecca Isaacs, and she's previously done work. This is going to be gory. It's going to be hard to find a page to show you that's not gory. Let's look for it, not the last issue. It's particularly gory compared to the other issues. Rebecca Isaacs previously worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that would have been I believe, Buffy the Vampire Slayer before the relaunch, the recent Boom relaunch. All right, here we go. This one's still bloody. It's less bloody though. So you can see lovely, gorgeous artwork. There's Rakala. And I'm a really big fan of the artwork in here. The coloring is by Alex Guimarães. I might probably saying that wrong. And I really like the coloring. The coloring really suits the art in this case. It was a good match. There's so many times, especially in the Big Two world in particular, where I really will like the penciling, but just absolutely despise the color artist put on the job, and it definitely does not feel like that here. I'm sorry about those lights. It's so hard to show when there's this lovely glossy paper. There we go. Try not to get a glare. So yeah, 6 issues in total make up the first story arc of REAVER. REAVER takes place in, I'm going to say this wrong, Madaras. I think it's pronounced Madaras, not Maderas. Madaras is this world that Justin Jordan has built. And this is a brutal fantasy, so this is extremely violent. It is not suitable for children. I mean, I can't remember, I don't recall any depictions of like kind of sex or anything. It's very much like graphic violence, cannibalism, that kind of stuff. It's war, all out war. So I suppose like maybe late teens are totally fine to read that. I mean, I read very graphic stuff when I was in my late teens, and some when I was in my early teens that my parents probably didn't really know I was reading or didn't understand what it was. So, but yeah, definitely it isn't more an adult book. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, okay, I'm all right. This is a false alarm. Anyway, I'll get on with it. So, there's 6 people who are basically thrown together, and they're basically these the most despicable prisoners of the Imperials, and they're assembled, they're poisoned and forced to do the bidding of the Imperials. One is a turncoat, one is a skin eater, one is a sorcerer. We've got a sorcerer's bodyguard, a serial killer, and this one guy that they call the Devil's Son. So they're the only ones who can apparently like stop the end of this new world order that is about to happen. And they're called the Hell's Half Dozen. and they're really fun. The Turncoat's probably my favorite, next to Ricala. Ricala being my very, very favorite, I think. Ricala, who is on the cover of issue 1, which I don't have here in front of me because I couldn't find it, honestly. I think I put it accidentally in one of my long boxes, and then I just, I couldn't figure out which one. So Ricala is the cannibal. She's the skin eater, and she's the best, man. Oh no, I'm showing you. I can show you the last issue again. There's gonna be spoilers in this. I'm sorry. This just happens when you kind of talk about an entire arc. That's Ricala, the cannibal. And our Turncoat character is right here. So yeah. And he's kind of like the only dude that's kind of has substance as like a possible almost good person, you know what I mean? And he's kind of thrown into everything. He's a coward, technically. That's why he's called a Turncoat. Like a deserter, I think. Like technically, he didn't when his army or squad or whatever was being overpowered. He kind of ducked tail and ran like a deserter rather than stand and fight with the rest of his crew, which were being slaughtered before him. And that's how like the very beginning of the comic goes. So you kind of start the comic seeing through his eyes, and then it kind of changes slowly over time. But he's the more amicable character, the only one that, you kind of like. But I mean, other characters will grow on you as you go. And they're all very different characters. Ricala, of course, being my favorite because she's, said to be like this very savage being, not very bright, she eats people, but really she's one of the more intelligent characters. There's a big surprise in the end, the wrap up for issue 6. There's a big outing of some characters in that. So I won't spoil the ending. I don't want to do that. But I like it when, you think a story is going in one direction, and then writers are not afraid to kind of just change everything. Like, just shock you. Kind of like, that's why Game of Thrones, people dying that you've kind of become accustomed to, kind of got attached to, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. That's pretty common in brutal fantasy these days. And then there's some elements of that in REAVER. But yeah, I think it'll shock you, and it's not something that I saw coming. Like, I didn't see any of that coming, so that's one of the things that I really like about this. I also thought it was kind of interesting because the way that this first story arc actually closes, kind of made me laugh in the sense that originally Justin Jordan was criticized a little bit by this one journalist for his portrayal of the women, and how like the women were kind of like I believe, if I can remember correctly, the treatment of women in this fantasy world, according to this one reviewer, was that they weren't very bright, they didn't have much voice, and there was only 2 female characters of a sort. And they kind of criticized, it was a long article, I can't remember it because I read it back when issue 1 came out, and that's when this came out. So when you, all the way to issue 6, and there's, this huge development, and you see these female characters in a completely different light than from issue 1, I'm kind of wondering what that particular journalist is thinking now, if they did continue to read. Because they did kind of treat Jordan quite harshly for his portrayal of the 2 women that were there. So, but yeah, if this is an ongoing, of course, so this is the first story arc. There's going to be more. Skybound signed the series on as an ongoing, and it's been popular. People have been really liking it. All the reviews that I read were very favorable. So this is one of those things that if you haven't picked up, you should definitely go pick it up now. The trade should be out soon. I'm pretty sure there's a trade being collected or coming out soon. But you can always check out Justin Jordan's Patreon, because I believe You can get digital copies through him of the comics if you don't want to wait for the trade and you can't get your hands on the floppies, because I know that, you know, these did sell out in the first couple runs. So I know, like, it's difficult right now to find issues 1, like maybe in your local shop or whatever. So if you don't want to wait for the trade, which will be probably a few weeks or maybe in the new year, I can't remember. Image did announce it, I just don't remember, and I'm terrible. I didn't look it up before I did this. But definitely go check out Justin Jordan's Patreon. And there you can get all kinds of digital comics for contributing to his Patreon for like $5, which is pretty awesome. He's got his other Image stories there, other Image comics there. So that's my tip for that. But yeah, I'm definitely never gonna stop reading Reaver, and I hope it ends up being one of those series like Spread that just goes on, because Spread made 5 full volumes, and I probably could have done with more Spread. I really loved Spread. And this is different. It's very different because it's fantasy. It's not sci-fi, and but it's still funny. There's like a lot of funny moments, witty moments. You know what I mean? That kind of harken back to lots of Justin's work, like Luther Strode and stuff like that, where you had some of those really funny moments. There's moments like that in Reaver, and especially with Ricala being kind of this smart-mouthed cannibal, kind of very tiny woman. she's very amusing as a character. So you do have that, and you have the brutal, gory violence. It's really gory, and there's some really great panels of people losing body parts to sharp objects. So if you really want something to kind of like, replace what you lost in Game of Thrones, like, your soul definitely at the end, when that last episode came out, or just all of the last season. Ugh. You want to reclaim some of that glory, definitely check out Reaver. I think you're going to really enjoy it. And it's amusing. There's some really amusing characters in there on top of like the cool fantasy world and story, Anyway, I think that does it for me about Reaver. I apologize, I've been so slack on the reviews lately, guys. Getting into the holiday season, things have been kind of insane, and I just feel like I pulled in so many directions that I'm just not getting enough stuff done that I really want to get done. So I'm going to try and make an effort to make sure I talk about these things, because I have been reading lots. I just seem to read before bed and then don't get to write down my thoughts or shoot a video, for instance. So we're going to try and fix that. But anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks to all my new subscribers. Please come back. I post a lot. I will. Anyways, thanks so much. And until next time, read something good. Bye.